And some folks might continue to join us, but we'll get started and start saying hello. My name is Monica. I am a longtime volunteer at North Star Reach. I've been here since before the very beginning of opening camp, and I have the sincere pleasure to have joined the full-time staff recently. So I sit as a development director, and get additional supporters for things like this. So it's so exciting to be a part of gaining support for camp, as well as hopefully providing support to families and campers as they need it. But I'm here just as a background figure. I'm here to introduce Karin and Dennis. They'll give you a little bit more about themselves, but the first exciting part of what I would love to share is that they are part of our camp family. Two of their grandkids come to North Star Reach, and that's part of their connection to us. But not only that, they're here to talk to us today about tools to take your relationship from surviving to thriving, making sure we talk about the importance of bonding. And we have two great people to speak of that. Karin is a licensed social worker and has been practicing for 43 years. Dennis is an attorney and has been practicing for 48 years. And they've been married, I believe you said 47 years, if I've got all my right. Cool. I did good. They're trained mediators. They've held numerous workshops and have started marriage ministry counseling in their church and community. I'm sure I'm missing a bunch more, but I'll hand it over to you, Karin, and feel free to let people know if you prefer them to be on mute or on camera. And I hope you all enjoy this conversation. Thank you all for being here.
I like the mute or camera.
On camera, but muted. Yeah.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. We're delighted to be here today to present these wonderful tools to take your relationship not just from surviving to thriving. They are exactly what helped us during very stressful times in our life and continue to be a big part of our life. So we're excited to share that with all of you.
So just by way of introduction, this is very personal for us. It was September 25th, 2011. We received a phone call from our daughter, Bridget, and her husband, Tim, telling us that their son, our grandson, Jack, needed a liver transplant to save his life. That impacted us as grandparents, as parents of Bridget and our other two children, extended family, in ways that continue. 5 years ago, our daughter-in-law was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer spread all over her body. It is not curable, and they have one child. So it was a revisitation of that kind of trauma that you're also painfully aware of.
So our hearts are with all of you and the trauma and stress that you've experienced, and your endeavor to support your children and your families. So we hope that we'll be able to add some support.
Okay.
So let me just get here. Oops. It's not doing it.
Oh, okay. Hold on.
Well,
Okay.
What did you do?
We did.
Just leave it. Just leave it. Just leave it.
We did
Okay.
that.
Okay.
Oh, good.
Hi.
Okay.
This is a self-portrait. Hold the applause, if you will, please. This is just one of my average days, but I did get my haircut, as you'll notice. So this is before the haircut.
What we're going to talk about today are five important points. The most important being number 5, the tools that we're going to demonstrate for you to how to stay connected. We'll start with helping us all review the importance of bonding and reviewing the effects of stress on the body, the brain, and our relationships, all of our relationships, especially our most important relationships in our family to our spouse, our partners, and our children, but then also our friends and extended family. Then we're going to review the stress styles of communication. There's 4 of them: the rabbit, the lion, the turtle, and the ostrich. And this is what we all do when we're under stress. So it's important to understand what we're doing and then replace it with something that's more supportive and healthy. So we're going to go over number 4, the elements of healthy communication, and then we're going to be presenting tools to help relationships thrive.
Down arrow.
Just press it. Okay,
No,
Bridget, she lost.
The down arrow.
I think, Bridget,
Yeah.
I'm doing the
Hi,
down
we're
arrow
still
over here
here.
and it doesn't work. So
Where's the- That's why Bridget's here.
Okay. Hold on. Okay. There we
Hi,
go.
where's
Okay.
which down
we're
arrow?
back.
I did that.
Over there,
Okay.
there.
Hold on. Okay. Oh,
Get it
there. Okay. There we go.
There.
Okay.
So I
This-
just keep pressing.
Yeah, the
those.
internet is not our forte.
Okay, ready?
needless
Okay, I
to
got
say.
it.
All right. So sorry about that.
Live from New
The
York.
buttons that usually worked weren't working. So the importance of bonding. We're going to start with the importance of bonding. And so bonding is, in fact, one of our basic biological needs. So we have 6 of them. In school, you probably learned food, clothing, shelter, air, and water. But in 1978, the American Pediatric Association added bonding to our basic biological needs. Notice I'm not saying psychological. And so we have that need for bonding our whole lives, especially when we're born. We die if we don't get it met. And as adults, we suffer pain during the middle years of our life. And then at the end of our lives, if our bonding needs aren't met, for instance, spouses lose, one of them dies after being married a long time. The other one, the surviving spouse often doesn't live more than 2 years. So that's because of bonding being a biological need.
So bonding requires physical closeness and emotional openness. The physical closeness, not nearly so difficult.
I don't know. This isn't working.
Mom,
Stop touching
just stop
the arrow.
touching the arrow. Okay. Just
Okay.
don't touch
Karen, put down the computer and step away. Okay?
I don't know.
Okay. Just keep going.
No, please don't touch it again. Okay, so, and emotional openness. So physical closeness is not, we master that pretty easily, especially when we're younger. The emotional openness is much more challenging, and especially when we're under stress.
So now the second area we're going to cover are the effects of stress on our brain, our body, and our relationships. The effects of stress on the brain are that it makes us more susceptible to depression, addiction, and behavior problems and other mental illnesses. It reduces our ability to regulate our self-control and our emotions. It lowers our brain's ability to cope, and it increases anxiety, fear, and aggression.
The effects on the body raises cortisol levels, elevates heart rate and blood pressure, increases the risk of blood clots, slows physical recovery, and compromises immune function, and it causes premature aging. Don't be distracted by my gray hair.
The effects of stress on relationships. Stress is contagious, and we actually pass it to each other back and forth. And because of our nervous systems co-regulate. So if someone is very activated because of anxiety, often we can pass that anxiety and that stress to the other person because nervous systems mirror each other. This increases our production of cortisol, which impacts us by heightening our self-interest. It makes us paranoid. It makes us biologically less empathic, able to take a walk in other people's shoes, and less generous. It inhibits our release of oxytocin, and oxytocin is a critical hormone for bonding. It happens when people have a baby. It also happens during making love, and it happens whenever we have physical touch from each other. It's a wonderful, helpful bonding hormone, and it's critical to our happiness.
When our biological and emotional needs are not met, we automatically use stressful ways of communicating, usually homeschooled. These are called stress styles.
So in order to understand the stress styles and why this happens, we need to understand how our brain works. So very quickly, our brain is comprised of actually 3 parts. Number 1, at the base of our skull there, you can see the brain stem regulates heart and lung function. It's referred to as our reptilian brain or our survival brain. The second brain there, number 2, is above that brain. It's wrapped around that brain, and it contains our limbic system. And it's referred to as the emotional brain. It contains all of our feelings and emotions. And the third brain is the neocortex. That's the big one up on top. And it's bigger, but it's the least powerful of the 3 brains. It's the thinking brain. It's where reason and logic and language is, but it does not control the brain like brain stem number 1. So we have, when that brain stem gets triggered because of a threat or stress, we go into three possible responses. We either fight and become angry and a blamer and controlling like a lion, or we have flight, which is run by fear. We feel very afraid and we run away from the fear. And so we become an appeaser or a placator like a rabbit, or we become a distractor like an ostrich who wants to hide from any problems and hide their head in the sand. And so the third response is freeze. And the freeze response usually looks like super reasonable, very logical and computer, but they're afraid of their feelings. So they hide their head under the hard shell of logic. And that's why it's like a turtle.
So now for our props. First, you do that one.
Yep. No,
First is the bunny. She's going to hold it and I'll talk about it. The bunny runs away, fearful of conflict. Or the ostrich denies that there's a problem, wants to distract or become irrelevant and ignore the 800-pound gorilla in the corner of the room. Right? The next, the turtle, clearly the healthiest because that's my stress style. I just want to, like Jack Webb, Dragnet, just give me the facts, and I'll figure it out for you. Don't spend time trying to solve your own problems.
Hide their head under
hide your head under the shell. Very healthy. Okay. The last one is the anger, the blamer, the person who controls with abusive language, can become violent. And all of us are susceptible of one or the other of these. And sometimes we have a default. If one doesn't work, then we default to the second stress style. So
Dennis is the turtle, as he said, and I am, my first stress style of choice is to be a lion. So I go, "Woo," and he hides his head under the hard shell of logic. And then I get upset because he won't acknowledge his feelings about something.
What feelings?
Because he's afraid. I'm not afraid of feelings, but I blame the situation.
No one would ever accuse you of being afraid of feelings. That's for sure.
Here. And so that's our primary stress style. Then our backup stress style kicks in when he decides he doesn't want to be a turtle anymore and he's just fed up with this lion. So he becomes a lion, and immediately within a second, I become the rabbit. Oh, I'm sorry, honey, it's all my fault. I shouldn't have said that. Oh my goodness. So those are the ways we go into the terrible stress styles. They're not terrible, but everybody does it. And it's helpful to be aware of what your stress style is. We encourage you to try to identify that.
So stress makes us non-relational. It disconnects us as couples, human beings, and it makes us insensitive to the needs of others. We are created to be relational. Our brains are designed to run best on relational joy, one of our goals in this presentation. And here you can see a couple clearly communicating well, facing each other. No one's up or down, and the child in that relationship learning how to be in a healthy relationship.
So now we're going to cover the elements of supportive communication. And so it's important to understand what communication is made up of. 94% of everything we humans communicate to each other is nonverbal. And that comprises our voice tone and our body language. Our body language is the way our face looks, whether we're smiling, whether we're giving eye contact, or we're looking at each other from the side, or even have our backs turned to each other. Voice tone is like this, or it's, well, and you get mad and upset. So words are only 6% of our communication. So you got to really watch your body language if you want to be leveling and supportive and loving, which is helpful.
So supportive communication is being respectful of each other, loving and emotionally open in a correct way, even when we are under stress.
The goal that we have here is of taking our relationships from just surviving to thriving. And how do we do that? We set the stage for supportive communication, and we use specific tools. These are the tools that Dennis and I have used for years, and we learned them 25 years ago, and it's extremely helpful and it's supportive. So before we do that, we're going to look at the do's and don'ts of non-supportive communication, or for supportive communication. To have supportive communication, you need to do these things.
So for the sake of transparency, I excel at the do's. Karen, on the other hand, you figure that out for yourself. Okay, so be aware of ideal timing of the conversation for each of you. Listen without judging. Stay attuned to your partner's feelings. Give good eye contact. Listen with your heart and your body. Mirror your partner's emotions. Take your partner's venting of their feelings seriously, and communicate that you have their back, that you're there for them.
For instance, the ideal timing, we learned early in our relationship that when I brought up problems after 8 o'clock at night, it wasn't a good idea, because Denny was tired. He gets up earlier than I do. He's in the office at 6:30 often, and he doesn't want to deal with issues after 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So
and waking Carrie up at 6 o'clock in the morning when I'm leaving for the office is a particularly bad time to negotiate issues with her.
Right. So the don'ts are: don't criticize your partner. Don't side with the enemy. Don't try to solve their problem. Just stay present to them and try to empathize with their feelings. Don't blame them for the problem or suggest that they made a mistake. Listen with an open heart. Don't ask why, why they feel a certain way. They just do, and accept that feeling. Don't take it personally. Don't tell your partner to calm down. That can really, when I'm upset and somebody says to me, just calm down, it makes me more upset. And I think most people tend to be like that. Don't minimize their concern. And by all means, don't interrupt. That's one of my problems, is that I do interrupt Denny way too much. So don't interrupt. Try not to interrupt. So now we have the 5 tools to help relationships thrive. And these tools are spelled out here. We're going to start with the daily temperature reading, and then proceed to the mind reading, something that's true for me. The empty the jug, which is our personal favorite, and many people really love the empty the jug tool. And then we're going to have the 5th tool, which is supports resiliency, and that's taking each other on a museum tour of joy.
So the purpose of the daily temperature reading is to use this tool to check in and develop in our open, flowing communication. Use good eye contact and whole face listening, which we will demonstrate. Each person takes a turn with each of the 5 topics.
I call this tool emotional intercourse.
It's one of the options.
Oh boy, we get to get inside each other's heart and mind and soul too, depending on the amount of time you have. You can take as much time as you want or as little time. Denny and I have done this tool on the way to the gym, for instance, driving in the car. We do it on our walks sometimes to catch up with each other, to stay current with what's going on for each other, not only in our head and activity wise, but also in our heart and our soul. So it's a beautiful tool. It was started by Virginia Satir, the great social worker from the last century.
And Tim and I have used it in the, like, waiting for surgery.
Yeah, and our daughter and son-in-law, I have waited and used it when they're waiting for surgery, for instance. We've done it in many different circumstances, but people like to do it when they go out to dinner together. It's just a way of catching up with each other. It's not a problem-solving tool. It's a nurturing tool for your relationship. So we're going to demonstrate that
And
now.
as with all of these tools, we ask permission because when our partner agrees, they're giving us the gift of their time and attention. So Karen, would you do a daily temperature reading with me?
Yes, and when you do the tools, it's best if, even if you're walking, try to hold a hand, have some physical contact. So we're going to turn toward each other. And it's good if you're sitting and you can do it that way. You can do it next to each other in the car. You don't have to be looking at each other for this necessarily.
We discourage this positioning in the car, especially when it's moving. That's the attorney, just a warning, attorney
Yes.
warning.
No, actually, he's the comedian. So, okay. All right. So do you want to start?
I will.
Okay.
So,
And when you'll see when we do this, we take turns with appreciations. We take turns with new information.
tell me something you appreciate.
No, we don't need to just, I'll start. Okay.
Okay.
I appreciate your picking up my prescription at the pharmacy the other day. That was really relieved me of that stress. I also appreciate your arranging for the car to go in for the recall on that part. That's something that I really appreciate. You're taking care of the car. I also appreciate you taking time from your busy schedule to help prepare for this with me.
So I appreciate all of the hard work you did on the presentation, as usual, so much more than I. I appreciate the very thoughtful attention you give to our grandchildren, especially at holiday times, special treats and so forth. And I appreciate the really hard work you do with your clients, especially during COVID and how that's impacted your ability to meet in person with people.
Okay, new information. You may not be aware of this, but our new neighbors that just moved in, she's expecting their second baby the end of October. So I'd like to get something for them, and bring it over. We don't know them well, but I thought that would be nice, And also our godson, Larry, I found out from my good friend, Vicky, that he might be coming in for the holidays, so either Thanksgiving or Christmas.
Thank you. New information. We didn't catch the last skunk. I went out to check the trap this morning and there's another stinking skunk under our deck. News to follow. Okay. Also, I have 25 more boxes to shred. Woo-hoo, you can come and take pictures. Okay.
Are you done?
I am.
Okay. Puzzles.
I stopped. I'm done. Okay.
Puzzles.
Yes.
Our good friend Roger may or may not be coming in. I'm worried. Puzzles are our worries. Things that we're not sure about. So I'm not sure whether Roger is going to be coming in for Thanksgiving or not, given the COVID. And he doesn't want to risk it, and we may not want to risk it because it just isn't quite calmed down yet. I know he's had a vaccine, but he's not calmed down. The other thing I'm worried about is that I don't know whether I'm going to be able to get my elective surgery on my hernia taken care of before the holidays, because I have to hear back from the doctor. So.
Thanks. So I'm puzzled about whether or not my new employee, like third now, is going to work out. It's hopeful, but I'm just puzzled about that. Also, how we're going to be able to get together with friends and family during the fall and winter, with COVID still very active in our society and world.
Okay, wishes, hopes, and dreams.
No complaint. Sorry.
Oh no!
I missed. She wants to skip the best part. She wants to skip the complaints. Well, I've got one, even if you don't.
Okay, I forgot the middle one. That's amazing. Okay. So this is number 4 on your PowerPoint there. This is a minor complaint. You don't want to tackle the big issues in your relationship on this. This is a minor complaint. It usually consists of something that's irritating you that your partner is doing, or that a family member is doing. So, by the way, you can do daily temperature reading with family members as well, not just your partner. So So my complaint with requests for change is that, let's see, I have noticed that when I do minor things around the house to keep up some things or clean something or put something away or sort something, that too often you don't notice. And I would prefer instead that you notice some of those things that I've done, especially when I point them out, but that you also express appreciation through a gesture or acknowledging it more often than you do. You do sometimes, but more often than you do.
Thank you. So I have noticed that you're able to walk through the attachment to the front of our house with the big door that goes up and down, and not look around very much, and at the things that are on the floor and so forth. And I would prefer instead, as the snow approaches, that you occasionally stop and pick one of those up and then maybe empty it. Thanks for listening to that. Okay.
You don't agree to do the things
No.
each other is requesting. However, you know that that's something that's an irritant. And so if you want to improve your relationship, you'll address it. Or you can negotiate at another time. But it's good to get that out rather than let it fester in your emotional jug. So wishes, hopes, and dreams. I hope that we're able to clean the garage, speaking of garage,
Right.
this weekend, because we don't have a lot else going on. So that would be a good time to do it. And I'm also really looking forward to and hoping that we can have more contact with our family this Thanksgiving and Christmas, as opposed to last year, hopefully, as the COVID situation gets better.
And my wish is that soon and very soon, like the song, we can have sleepovers with our 6 grandchildren, right? And around the fireplace, cook hot dogs, marshmallows, fall asleep, etc.
Okay,
Thanks for
good. Okay, thank you for sharing. So that's the daily temperature reading. Just here it is. There it is. Okay, the next tool is the mind reading tool. And this is a short tool, and it can be done anywhere at any time. Only one of you needs to do it at a time. The daily temperature reading, if you choose to do that, both of you need to contribute, not one of you sharing all of that, but both of you. So the mind reading, just one person can do it.
And this is an alternative to each of us saying, Karen, why are you so angry? Because now I'm out of permission, and I might guess wrong, as opposed to her telling me what's going on.
So it's wonderful to check out your assumptions. That's the purpose of this tool, rather than acting off your assumptions. If you think your partner is upset because you're running late, then you start acting with an edge and a chip on your shoulder. And pretty soon you and your partner are probably fighting or arguing because he thinks you're late. So it's better to check out our assumptions. And that's just an example. So this is enough. These are other examples. So do I have permission to read your mind?
Sure.
Something I think that's true for you that you haven't shared with me is that you are very worried about your brother Kieran's need to have a heart valve replacement, and that's very troubling for you.
That's absolutely correct. It is. Because one of my brothers already died, the younger one. He's 10 years younger, and already had a heart attack. He's got a pacemaker, and anything having to do with his heart is very troubling and problematic.
Thank you for sharing what's even more true.
So
the next tool that we're going to do is called Something That's True for Me. And this is a tool that allows you to speak up on your own behalf without pushing the other person away.
So it is. She said that's my personal favorite. I want to throw a flag. Is there a referee?
Yeah, Denny grew up in a family where the children were to be seen and not heard. I grew up in a family where children were heard.
Oh, yes.
So I don't have any problem speaking up on my own behalf.
No, you don't.
But Denny did at first. And so I know he was upset about something, but he wouldn't tell me. So I would follow him around like a shadow and say, tell me what's wrong. I know something's wrong. And so this keeps you from having to do that. And once Denny learned this tool, it was incredible how much closer we felt and how he began to have a voice about what he was feeling. He has a voice, he's an attorney, but about what he's feeling and sharing with me, that became a really helpful tool. And by the way, the mind reading tool was a good tool for me because I was reading his mind without permission all the time. Okay.
Oh, can I do something that's true for me?
Yes.
So something that's true for me that you may not know is that I'm very worried about the possibility that at any given point in time we could receive, some report about some illness in our family, especially those in our family that have compromised immune systems, and the danger that surround us with the virus.
So I hear you saying that one thing that's true for you is that you're very worried and anxious about our vulnerable family members, Jack and Elizabeth, who, if they got the COVID, could get seriously ill, very dangerously ill. Right. And so that's very troublesome for you. I understand that, and I can see how that would be the case, because of their vulnerability and our constant worry about them anyway. So yeah, and I worry about that too. So
thanks for listening.
Okay, can I do something that's true for me?
No. Yeah. Oh, yes. Okay. No. Go ahead.
Something that's true for me that you don't know is that you have mentioned several times about the possibility of us going away for a long weekend. And earlier in the summer, I kind of wanted to do that too this fall, because we used to take like a weekend or a short week in past years to go away. However, what's really true for me is that I really don't want to go away this fall. I'd like to postpone that kind of a trip for after the holidays, because I just feel too stressed with everything that's on our plate now. And it'd be more stressful for me to take off 3-4 days and then get everything else done. So I prefer not to do that now.
Thank you for sharing. So I can understand how, particularly this time of the year, aside from COVID and so forth, with everything that has to be done, the holidays, Thanksgiving and Christmas crushed together as our society has done, all the expectations placed on us as members of family and friends, adding going away, and actually relaxing, is probably not going to happen. We would just go away and leave relaxation in the garage and come back and take it out of the garage.
Okay. Oh.
Okay.
Yes. Okay. Thanks for really understanding.
Thanks for sharing.
Okay. All right. So that's our third tool. And now we get to our favorite one. So our favorite one is actually the emotional jug that we have inside of us. So here is the emotional jug that we have inside of us. And so all of us have this jug. It's where we keep our emotions. Some of us have a full jug all the time, especially when we're stressed. But this jug contains all the variety of feelings that we feel throughout a day or throughout the week. And they get put in here. And if we're not processing them and sharing them with someone who can be empathic for us and really listen to us, they end up staying stuffed in there. And this is emotional energy, and it doesn't go away. So this emotional energy can do two things. It can either explode, and when it explodes, it only gets rid of the top layer, which is usually anger and frustration. And so we throw a little fit or a temper tantrum. The problem is that it doesn't really address the other feelings that came before. And so there's feelings that come before anger. Anger is the result of all the packing up of all these other feelings of fear and pain, and so forth. So it doesn't solve the problem. So as an example, we start a given day with good feelings, or a given week. Good feelings, glad feelings. This is all good, glad, loving feelings. And then somewhere along the line, Monday or Tuesday in the week, along comes a disappointment or a hurt. Somebody hurts our feelings, or our partner doesn't understand us or gets upset with us about something. So that pain goes in. And when that pain or hurt goes in, we feel sad. So sadness comes in our jug. If that isn't getting vented or processed, then it stays in there and it keeps us from feeling the happy feelings we were feeling. Then over time, if this isn't coming out, we start to feel afraid, and we feel very afraid, and that gets stuffed in there. And pretty soon we're plugging up our jug with fear and worries and anxiety and hurt and sadness. And so we're further out of touch with the good feelings. And then over time, if that's not getting processed, in comes anger, and then we feel very prickly and irritable and frustrated. And so that gets stuffed. So this is a stuffed jug. So our tool here has us have a way to empty out these feelings in a leveled, congruent, loving and supportive way to share what's going on, so that we can actually take out anger, we can take out fear, we take out sadness, and we get back in touch with the good feelings. So anger is a surface feeling. It's on the surface, and underneath the feelings that came before are feeling disrespected or misunderstood, or alone or afraid, or all the feelings that came first. And then we respond with anger as a defense against that pain. So the empty the jug is very useful for identifying and expressing pent-up feelings.
So each of you takes a turn asking the other 4 questions, one at a time, listed below. You can choose a time limit. After the listener gets a response, then ask again, tell me something else you're mad about, or tell me something else you're worried about, or sad about, or glad about. When the speaker seems to be finished, the listener then asks if you were able to be mad about something else, or worried about something else, sad or glad, what would it be? And when the speaker is finished, the listener says, thank you for sharing. One of us.
So do you want to empty your jug?
I can do that.
Okay. All right. So tell me something you're mad about.
I'm angry about all of the ugliness and fighting that occurs with so many of my families in my elder law practice when there's a disability or death. All that ugliness comes out that's been under the table, so to speak. Also, that we're going into another fall or winter dealing with COVID, when we had, as a society, I think, a world, so much hope that we would not be suffering through this time again.
Tell me something else. Is there anything else you might be worried about?
No, not right now. No, that's worried, yes, not angry.
Now, if we had more time, we're only one of us is going to do this. Usually, if you have time, both of you do it, and you should always both of you do it. We're just demonstrating how it's done for one person, but what would happen if the two of you when the two of you do it together, Denny would then ask me, tell me something I'm mad about, tell me something I'm mad about, if there was, and keep asking until we can't say anymore. So we're shortening this because of our time constraints. So tell me something now that you're worried about or afraid about.
I'm worried about our family members who have compromised immune systems, and you and I are both I'm way over 65, and the implications for people, for those of us as we get older.
Tell me something else you're worried about.
I'm worried about Eileen and John, my cousin and her husband, their 7-year-old grandson, who has an aggressive brain tumor that's just been diagnosed, and the impact that's having on all of them.
Is there anything else you might be worried about?
Worried about work, because I'm so dependent upon staff to do particular duties, and I don't have too much backup. If somebody gets sick or leaves, it'll leave great additional stress on me.
Okay. Tell me something that you're sad about.
I'm sad that one of my good friends, an attorney for over 35 years, dropped dead suddenly 2 weeks ago while mowing his lawn, and he's 5 years younger than I am. He had no sign whatever. I'm also worried about our friend, lifelong friend. In fact, I broke you up. You and Vicki were living together in an apartment when I met you, and she may be moving out of state, which means that we'll see her very infrequently.
Tell me, is there anything else you might be sad about?
Yeah, I'm sad that, again, that we don't have as much physical contact with the grandchildren as I would prefer.
Yes, or me either.
Okay.
Tell me something that you're glad about.
I'm glad I have a new employee who seems to be doing pretty well. And I'm glad that we were able to do this work together, both today and for all these decades.
And is there anything else you might be glad about?
I'm glad that I'm healthy. I'm lucky. I'm glad that I'm healthy. And
Good.
I'm glad you're healthy.
Good.
Thanks
Now,
for listening.
You're welcome, and thanks for sharing. Now, this is done always when you empty the jug with your partner or another family member or even a friend. You want to make sure both of you do it, so one of you isn't the one getting emptied out. It's really important that both of you do it, but we just demonstrate it with one of us, and you take turns when you both do it.
2 minutes.
Our last tool is the Museum Tour of Joy, and this helps rebuild or build resiliency. And this is sharing a joyful and happy memory. So each of you shuts your eyes and pictures a joy-filled moment in history of your relationship, from dating to married, or any time in your relationship, even hard times, your survival of those hard times. So imagine walking into a museum and seeing these pictures hanging in a gallery. Take turns sharing the picture of joy with each other. First, share the description and finish the sentences listed below. Each person takes a turn while the other listens. When one person is done, the other says, "Thank you for sharing," and use both words and gestures. So for the sake
You
of
do this
time,
one.
I'll do this one.
You
Okay,
do the museum tour with me.
sure.
Okay.
Okay, so I'd like to share a picture from my Museum of Joy. And this is a picture of the Halloweens we had when the kids were little. And because I love Halloween, I came from a family that really made it fun and special. So I wanted to have that with my family. And I would make costumes, and we would have special food, and the kids would invite their friends. We would go trick-or-treating throughout the neighborhood with friends and family, and then come back and have sloppy joes. And then we would sleep over in front of the fireplace. What was most wonderful for me during those times was, oh wait, I want to show you here. This is the actual tool. So I'm following these sentence stems. What was wonderful for me was that we got to be kids again. And we got to play and have fun. Sometimes we'd get dressed up with the kids, and it was really nice. What I enjoyed so much was seeing the kids. I especially enjoyed, because I put a lot of effort into those homemade costumes, getting excited about their costumes, being little Ewoks and Princess Leia, for instance, etc. What I will never forget is your storytelling when we were having sleepovers, and the kids would be in their sleeping bags in front of the fireplace, and you would tell stories, and they were hilarious because they weren't just cute and wonderful for the kids, but they had adult humor in them sometimes too. And I would laugh so hard.
I didn't mean to.
But it was very fun, and that's what I enjoyed the most on those times. I never forget. I loved relaxing and laughing together with the kids and with friends and family. I wish that time hadn't gone away so quickly, and I miss it. And I hope that we'll be able to do that with our grandchildren in the future, and not on Halloween, but
Soon.
just having sleepovers with the grandchildren, because we can replicate a lot of that, so when COVID has gone away. So
Thanks for sharing.
you're welcome. Okay, so that's talking about joyful things, and it's really a wonderful way to take a trip down memory lane. So do you have any questions?
Next one.
Oh, wait,
Wait.
sorry. I forgot the last slide. To recap, what we talked about today was the importance of bonding, the effects of stress on the body, the brain, and relationships,
The stress styles of communication, the fight, flight, or freeze.
and the elements of healthy communication,
And
the do's and don'ts.
the tools to help your relationships thrive instead of just survive.
So do you have any questions? We'd be happy to answer your questions. And if we don't have time for them, you're always free to email me at Karin McNicholas@gmail.com. And I will try to respond to your questions after that through email. So
Anything?
any questions?
I have a question.
Yes.
So Dennis, were you always open to these communication tools, or if you have a partner or somebody on the other end who might not be ready to open up and be vulnerable, what are ways to make sure that you could have an open dialogue like you exhibited today?
So the alternative to learning how to, to do something different is like the definition. Well, the alternative is not improving. It's like, insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, getting the same result, wanting a different result. So for us earlier in our relationship, we did have those dramatically different styles of fighting. So she'd get angry with me and I'd go to the basement to my workroom. And then I'd turn around and I'd say, for goodness sakes, what are you doing standing behind me? She says, we're going to solve this problem. I said, you're going to solve the problem, but I'm not. I'm going to a different part of the house. And then she chased me around like a cat and a mouse. So I thought, okay, there must be a better way to do it, especially modeling for our children then. I mean, it's one thing when as adults, like self-inflicted pain, but then our children are homeschooled. And so we, for the sake of our children and our longevity, health-wise, mentally and physically, we want to be more cooperative and to put down our armor and realize that no matter how we may have felt, I was the firstborn son in an Irish family. And so I probably didn't get too much bad feedback, but so it's important to learn how to do these things for all of those reasons.
Oh, and I'll mention about how it's good for men.
Yeah.
To have this, like,
Right.
just follow the steps.
Yeah,
Right.
What's
Really I found with teaching some of the couples that I work with, some of these tools, is that the men tend to really like it because it gives them a handle on how to handle emotions. Because truth be told, little boys are born with about half fewer neural pathways available to them between the neural pathways between the emotional brain and the thinking brain.
I think I'm hurt.
So it doesn't, they have the same emotions that we have, but they don't have the neural pathways as many available to them to express it through their neocortex. So this gives them a handle on how to do that. And a lot of the men that I've worked with said, I really like it because we make more progress in solving problems. I know what to do when she's upset. I feel like I can handle it. I have one man said, it's like I'm playing hockey again. And I have a helmet, I have my pads, I have my hockey stick, my puck. I know what to do in an emotional relationship with my wife. So they tend to be appreciative of that. One of the things is to just ask them to try it and see how it feels, because once you do one of these tools with each other, it's like jumping inside each other and you get close. Instead of going like this, you're coming closer together and it feels better. And so when it feels better, everybody wants to do what feels better.
And the goal is that you want each of you is not going to feel the same way. It's that your different feelings will healthily coexist with each other, so that you go closer and closer together. So,
thank you for asking that question. Are there any other questions?
we're out of time.
Okay, thank you so much.
Thank you very much for
being
joining us
present.
today, and God bless
Mhm.
all of you.
Good.
Thank you
Good luck
guys
with
so much.